Hey, what's up you guys, and welcome to another alternative factuals video. So today is going to be the last day for this for Blacktooth Publishing when it comes to one of their third stories that I want to talk about. All three of the stories are absolutely solid, different art styles, different motivations behind the characters, and each of them had different abilities, which each proved to be very interesting and different in their own ways. But this particular story is going to be called Snakebite. Now, before I dive into anything, I want to let you know that I will have all the information regarding about the Kickstarters and the company itself, and I want you guys to support it, but I will talk about that detail later on in the video so that way you guys know what to do. And once again, like I said, the links will be in the description. So just in case you want to support now, you can do that, but I will dive into details later if this just so happens to be your first video here. But Snakebite pretty much follows Malik Onini, and for the most part, we do know that he was someone who was in juvenile detention at one point, and he got these new tattoos to commemorate his life going in a direction, better choices, fresh start. I've heard people do it all the time, do something new or new ritual, something just to signify my life is not going to go back to what it used to be. However, his particular tattoos actually seem to have given him superpowers. And his powers seem to be snake based, which is, like I said, an interesting take on it because he literally got snakes, and it seems like these snakes can protrude and come out of his body, and just he can turn himself partially into a snake. And I think to some level he might be able to turn into a full snake, you never know. But let's kind of go over the story and kind of go over the backbone of it. So once again, like I said in the other videos, I'm not going to give you a page by page breakdown because I don't want to spoil any of the story for you, but I do want to give you some important details so that when you're buying the story, you know what you're getting into. So when we catch up with Malik, you already know, like, he seems to want to do better, and for the most part you can already tell within the first page of how different he is. He's being pretty much there for the kids of the community, and don't get me wrong, this takes place in the hood, so like I said, things function differently on a whole nother level. Even the conversation, the dialogue feels very organic. It feels like I'm talking to my homeboys, that, you know, like when I'm not really making videos or, you know, running a business, for example. The conversation feels very organic. Now, one of the things that becomes troubling immediately is that some of the people he knows is definitely like still into that gang life activity while he's trying to be different. He doesn't want to go to areas where he feel like it's going to be a problem. He doesn't want to put himself in a situation. For the most part, he's trying to avoid that aspect of his life. So what seems to go on already within the first few pages as well is that we can see that Malik has a very, very tense relationship with his dad. And I mean, there can be a couple reasons for it. One, he is on probation still. And two, his dad probably either doesn't respect him, or maybe he's disappointed, and, you know, maybe he's always been this way, which is why Malik maybe have turned to a life of crime. We don't know the reasoning for it, but we do know there's a lot of tension to the point that they seem like they about to throw hands at one point. And sometimes this happens, unfortunately. You know, sometimes that cycle of toxicity, that cycle of hurt, that cycle of pain can affect the following generation. But it seems like Malik is trying to actively stop it right where he is. Do better, be better. And his dad seems to want to throw the fact that he made a mistake or whatever the mistake was in his face. Due to that tension, you know, he's going to leave and try and make sure he doesn't get into another issue because his dad is willing to use his situation against him. So we already have an idea of what kind of character his dad is for the most part. But nonetheless, you know, he seems to go out, try and have a good time with his friends, and it seems like you already know what's going on is that someone broke into the car, and then there's going to be an altercation, and there's going to be a problem, and people are going to start fighting, and basically a ton of stuff is going to happen, which is going to cause a ton of issues in the situation as well. But one thing we quickly find out as well is that the dude that he seems to be arguing with, who's in his house, is not really his father. It's more like his stepfather. His real father is out there somewhere who we haven't met as of yet, but we do know that his stepfather does not like him, and I kind of will explain the reasoning why, because unfortunately we live in a community where, you know, people will get with people's moms and not understand that they have kids, and in order to assert their dominance over that kid, sometimes they'll be very disrespectful. And it's something that we see, unfortunately, in the African-American community, and it does exist in other communities as well, but I can't speak on that because I am not a part of those communities. But this tension between him and his stepfather, and then his mom is just like this submissive woman who doesn't like the confrontation. Her son is very strong-willed. The stepdad is very strong-willed. There's just a lot of tension between them two because, you know, he just feels like he should have control over him and whatever goes on in his house, and the mom seems to go along with it. But one thing I want to talk about the most is pretty much the explanation of his powers. So it seems like he does have the ability to turn himself into snakes, which is good for reconnaissance, where basically he can drivel himself into various forms of snakes, which is an extension of himself while still being himself, but also turn individual body parts into snakes. So he can turn his legs into like snakes. He can turn his arm into like a giant snake and use strengths of like pythons and stuff to punch people. And it does seem he has enhanced stamina because we do know snakes are very tough when it comes to taking damage, and they are considered, you know, one of the most poisonous, deadly, and various forms of snakes on the planet are extremely deadly when it comes to how they take out their prey, even to us. So he seems to take a beating, you know, in this situation where he's trying to figure out what's going on with these cars, why are they stealing them. So nonetheless, after he kind of deals with all these henchmen, the houses of the henchmen, you know, you can tell, like I said, he's trying to do the right thing. And his powers are very, very interesting because I don't know the extent of his powers. We do know he has enhanced strength. He doesn't have he does have enhanced stamina. He seems to have some resistance to damage. He can still take damage and suffer damage, but we do know he has some resistance. I also don't know if he has a healing factor, but it will kind of seem he does have an enhanced healing factor because we do see the next day that the wounds he sustained during the fight in that house trying to get the people who were stealing from people's cars, he seemed pretty healed up. Like he didn't have any damage at all. So I would assume naturally he does have an enhanced healing factor because of those tattoos. Now the real question is, obviously, where the heck did those tattoos come from and how did it give him powers? Because I think this can take a various of different routes. I don't think it's a scientific route so much in terms of, you know, the tattoos contain chemicals in which altered his DNA. At least I wouldn't think so. It seems like the snakes probably are a representation of something because he got them right after he got out the juvenile detention hall, and then the juvenile detention hall, him getting the tattoos, the representation of him starting a brand new life of making better choices, you know, could have really kicked in these, you know, tattoos, and maybe it has something to do with the tattoo artist knowing that he wanted to do something different, gave him the ability to do something different, to fix his community, to do something right. But we also don't know where these powers come from. But I'm just assuming based on the topics and themes that are taking place within this particular comic of wanting to do better, struggling with the environment that he's in, but still after leaving the juvenile detention hall, after making poor choices, he does something that, you know, is productive with his powers, with his time, and choosing to avoid trouble as much as he can. But like I said before in the other videos, this is also a part of the Kickstarter, which will be a 45-day pre-order campaign starting from September 30th. So by the time this video comes out, it would have already started, and then it's going to be ending in November 14th. So the money from the Kickstarter will go towards printing the pre-order comics and funding, like, you know, much more series and comics and other stories that you may want to hear, because these stories are only the beginning. And as long as you continue to support, we will be able to get these stories out there to more people, and Blacktooth Publishing can be able to create stories that reflect the life of me, you, and other people of color that we have out there. Now, like I've said also in the other videos, these comics are completed. So the ones that are in the 3-issue graphic novel 70-page form, they're already completed. They're already kind of developed, and I'm reading the final version as we speak now. So this is only a means in which they'll be printed and shipped out, so you'll be able to get them, and you can get them in 2 forms, which is the graphic novel, which is a 70-page version, or you can get them as individual one-shot comics at various tiers, and you can get them starting as low as $10. So check the description down below for the links, as well as their social media polls, and I definitely hope you guys go out and support. I'm begging you, please support, because this is what we need more of. We don't have to force anybody else to give representation. We can just do it ourselves. And I hope to see you on the next video. Peace out.